Welcome back to The Rebel's Edge. I'm Jon Najarian, my brother Pete Najarian joining shortly. I flew all the way back from Yerevan, Armenia yesterday, and boy, are my arms tired. But other than that, we've got a great show for you, folks. We've got the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, basically taunting China yet again. And this time, the markets seem to like it. We'll tell you why on today's Rebel's Edge. Bang. Bang. You know,
he's finally back on U.S. soil. Well, actually, no, that's not really fully true.
Yeah, it is.
Well, kind of. I mean, I don't know. How does that actually work, John, with Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico is a U.S. protectorate. It's a U.S. territory. So
there you go.
This is the United States. You don't need a visa. You don't need a passport. If you're American, you can come here. And the Virgin Islands are the same way. So welcome back, folks. He's Pete Najarian. I'm Jon Najarian. I am indeed back from Armenia. Takes you most of a day, most of like 20 some odd hours to get out of there. And to get there, it takes even longer. But wow, what a great trip. We'll fill you in later because we want to get to the macro minute, which is how we kick off our show every day, folks. And macro, I'm going to say, equity futures were higher in the pre, and they've rallied throughout the day. Japan's Nikkei 225 surged to a fresh record. And we've got China saying their economy is still on track to reach this year's expansion target, even after they reported their weakest growth in a year. And that's something, Pete, that the president's going to twist the knife into Xi Jinping's side, I think.
Well, you know, John, for so many years, everybody has accepted everything China says as gospel. And let me tell you, I'm not so sure it is. You know, I mean, let's be honest. And by the way, last I looked, there actually are communists, right? So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that people just take for granted that they're just like us. No, they are not. So that being said, and don't get mad at me for saying it, it's the truth. It is what it is. So we're at day 20, I think, John, now on the shutdown, which I think is pretty interesting. The focus on rare earths is becoming more and more and more. I know we're going to get into that. But I'm still looking back to last week a little, John, about this whole issue with the regional banks and that type of thing. I don't think it's something that there should be panic about, but it's something that I think people should at least be aware of right now. So that was my takeaway from as good as the earnings were last week. And they were great across the board. I mean, honestly, these financials just crushed it. But some of those regionals had a few things to say that probably the markets didn't like so much, I'd say. So just keep that in mind as you're investing and trading and everything else.
Well, then we go to fantastic futures, Pete. And I'm going to say the president talking about rare earths, just as Pete said, fentanyl, and he named soybeans as one of the top issues. And soybeans are indeed rallying. So is nat gas, Pete. Nat gas is up some 40 cents since last Friday. And it's back to $3.30 from whatever it was, $2.80. So that's what I'll make my fantastic future today. It's kind of interesting how it bounces back and forth, but hasn't been able to stay below 3, Pete.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go in the same field, sort of, call it energy. How about crude oil, John, at 57? It actually got with a 56 handle today. So down about 1%. Last I looked just a moment ago, it was still trading. It was back up to 57, but we've been in the 56 area. I think that's something that when you take a look at that, when's the last time we were there? February of 2021. So something for everybody to kind of take a look at, understand a little bit more about where we are from that perspective. But I also wanted to just talk real quick about the VIX, like I always do, John. Down about 8%. We were down there in the near 19, actually just below 19, down about a couple of bucks. So yes, we make these big moves to the upside. It's been very difficult to sustain those moves once we get over 20. We got up over 20. We hit up there at 22, 23. And then all of a sudden, here we come cascading down again. And I'll just point out one thing that if we want to, we could show this as well. But the VXX, John, We talk about the VIX all the time, but how about this VXX, which is the short-term volatility index? That one I thought was pretty interesting. Oh, and by the way, take a look at what they were looking at. Well, we spiked up there. We were up on over 20, right? And then all of a sudden, when somebody came out and bought 10,000 of these puts just last week on Friday. And well, it seems like they've done pretty well on that trade, John, because they were trading at a fairly, 50 cents, something close to that, whatever it was. And you know where it is now? A couple bucks. So yeah, I would say that somebody had a pretty good handle on what they thought was going to happen short term, which is exactly what the VXX is, short term volatility. It pulled back almost immediately. And today, like I say, underneath 19, but hanging around 19 right now.
Yeah, just under the low of the day, Pete, was 1805.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we could go right back there if the market rallies into the close, folks. So
sure,
keep your eye on that.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, I've got Cliffs, Cleveland Cliffs. Shares jumped after announcing plans to expand into rare earth metals production. And why wouldn't you? If China's crimping the supply into the United States, and that's what the president was addressing when he said, hey, when I sit with China, I'm going to make sure that they know that rare earths, soybeans, and such are going to be part of the deal, or they're going to get 100% tariffs. China doesn't want that, Pete. They can't sustain that. Xi Jinping knows it because, as we already said, they had their lowest growth in a year. So unless he wants to get bounced out of office, the leader of China is going to need to negotiate with the president on the rare earths. And they sort of seem like they're willing to, Pete. But anyway, we had unusual activity in this one, Pete. Look at that nice spike today out of Cleveland Cliffs, up 16, 17% to 1552. Well, turns out the end of September on my birthday, Pete, September 29th, stock was 1250. Cliffs, somebody bought the October 1450 calls. Now, I'll also point out that some poor person bought the options that expired on the 17th. Well, it's the 20th today, so those didn't work. But the ones that were for the 24th, which is this Friday, worked like a charm. And what are those worth, Pete, when the markets jump so dramatically? Well, they're worth a lot. And you got to love how that's going to work out.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's great that you pointed out that the other one that didn't work. And that's why, you know what? It's not the easiest thing in the world. And UOA, unusual option activity that we talk about all the time. If you would have had both of those, you would have lost on the one, lost very little, and crushed it on the other one. Quite a big jump. So, yeah, I think this whole thing with Cliffs, John, the interesting thing is when you look at their Q3 numbers, the revenue, that was down a little bit. They missed the forecast. And on top of that, they trimmed some of their full year capital spend that they had. So there were some negatives, but the fact that they talked about expanding this whole thing and they're looking for, as much as they can, of course, these rare earths, the production there, that could be something pretty interesting. I mean, exploring the potential deposits that they've got and the mining sites that they already have, and all they've got to do now is start trying to get, if they can, get something in the rare earths world. I'm guessing that they could do that pretty quickly, John, and I think they could uncover that pretty quickly. So I think that's what's really just motivating the stock to go to the level that it is. I mean, a 15, 16% move out of Cliffs, that's a big move. They don't do that very often. So this is a pretty interesting one. And thank goodness we did have that UOA that expires on the 24th, because those guys ought to be pretty happy. And hopefully they display what you and I always talk about, which is DDA. You got to be discipline dictates action. And if you do, take off something. I mean, that's sort of our mantra, right? Is you've got to be disciplined, because the last thing you want to do is be holding on something that's really great and you didn't do anything. I mean, that's not the right response.
That's a fact. All right, let's talk about CELC, Pete. This is a stock that you and I really haven't covered very much, but they provided an update today on a significant milestone in developing targeted therapies for advanced breast cancer. And the number here is astonishing, Pete. A 76% reduction in risk of disease progression or death if they get this particular treatment. Well, I'd say to somebody suffering with breast cancer, this is one of those things that you pray for. something like this. And 76% reduction, that is amazing. And no wonder the stock's up 50% today, Pete.
Yeah, that's a hell of a move. I mean, last I looked, it was 46. Maybe it's 50% now, John, but it's 2 times the average volume for sure. That makes total sense to me. The fact that they had that big, they lit it up. By the way, the stock, John, got a jump up to, actually in the pre-market, it hit 102 today in the pre-market. But it's 83 is the new 52-week highs. That's during the regular hours that we're seeing. And I'll tell you what, John, this is something that's pretty daggone important, because the fact that they're already with this particular therapy, this is phase 3, which is very important. Now, they've got a very deep pipeline, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and they're working on everything. Obviously, this is breast cancer, but they do everything from breast cancer to prostate to gynecological things, all within that, the first all the way to the third. And after you get into the third and things look as good as they do, John, I think there's a heck of an opportunity for these guys to get this thing out into the public. And the cash burn that they had will suddenly turn into some pretty nice cash, I think, coming in for the company. So those shorts that are there, the 12% of those shorts, all I can say to them is, ouch, what are you doing? What are you thinking? This is a huge jump, like you said, whether it's 50% or 46%, whatever it is. Those shorts are not going to be happy today on what they were going to have to do, which they're going to have to buy that back, John.
Yep. Well, they're gonna. And when they do, they have to chase it significantly higher, apparently, even if they got a little relief from that $102 high in the pre. All right. Let's talk about EXEL, Pete. Excellius. It dropped following basically the opposite of what Pete just said in CELC. Instead of treating a form of cancer, this isn't breast cancer, this is colorectal cancer, it did not come up with the results that people wanted. And this isn't a horrible downward move, Pete, but it's certainly down double digits. You can see how on the upside, something that's positive for something as widespread as breast cancer or colorectal cancer could really drive a stock up. These guys did not have that good news, and instead the stock slumps about 11 or 12%.
Yeah, last I saw it was down as much as 13%, John. It got into the 33.80, I think, was the low. So yeah, and it's hovering around somewhere near those lows right now. But to your point, yeah, you had 2 clinical data sets disappointed. Phase 3, that's never going to be good. They raised the idea of how the safety concerns that are coming from this one and the second endpoints for non-liver metastasis remain, a big problem. And that's what you're facing here is you've got something that could be great, but unfortunately they're not able to reach the things that they did. And that's the problem today. That's gonna keep them down for a little while, John. And I got to say that when you're looking at this thing and you're looking at, all right, you're trying to do this, trying to do that. Meanwhile, if you've got any kind of a cash burn in these situations, which generally a lot of these companies really do in this whole field, this could be a problem. This could be something where they're going to be having to work out of this thing and maybe even start to get a little bit more money from somewhere, because this is unfortunately really bad news for them at this point in time. And the 13%, is that awful? It's pretty awful when you looked at that chart and you saw it's already made a drop not too many months ago, and now you're getting another significant drop today.
Well, let's wind it up, Pete, with Nvidia. There's hardly a day that goes by or a day that doesn't end in day where Nvidia is not in the news. And it is in the news again today because Bank of America Merrill said that surging demand for all things artificial intelligence means semiconductor sales could reach roughly $1 trillion in the next year and a half. That's pretty amazing stuff. And they flagged a lot of reasons for it. I'll let you get into some of those, Pete, because one of them is Micron with the DRAM and so forth. But just amazing. Any data center AI company that has exposure there is benefiting from what Bank of America Merrill had to say today.
They are. The interesting thing, John, is this is really positive, right? I mean, both of us, I think, would say that. And the Bank of America raised the forecast by 3% and 6% for their sales. The odd part is the market, the stock itself is not really doing a whole lot. It's basically relatively flat. Last I looked, it was trading about 183, John. Now, maybe it's moved a little bit off of that, but it is interesting because this seems like a very, very positive article. And the idea that Bank of America has raised from 860 billion up to $1 trillion. I mean, just imagine that for a second. But like you said, this absolutely affects DRAM. It affects NAND. It affects HBM. I mean, you name it, data centers, AI, this is everything. So it seems like a huge number, but maybe it's just the fact that, let's be honest, Nvidia's been on this run, and it's a pretty nice run, but it seems like they're kind of stalling for right now, John. I'm not sure why, but they're up. Basically, we're talking about 52-week highs right there. So it's not like it's doing anything bad. I'm just saying that I'm a little surprised it didn't get a little bit more of a leap, maybe a couple of percent to the upside off of this. It didn't, but I think Bank of America is exactly right. There's a lot going on that could be great into the future for Nvidia.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that it's not seeing that big jump, Pete, is that a lot of this is priced in. A lot of people were thinking Bank of America said it and put it on paper to basically make it a permanent record. But they are certainly trading at some very rich premiums, some of those stocks, AMD, Micron, as well as Nvidia. And Micron, of course, Pete was the specialist in it for years and years. That's DRAM, among other things. And AMD, of course, right in there as well. All right, Pete. So we get to watch something that I think we might never see again, unless the kid keeps playing, for years and years. But how do you top this? Because a certain player was out there, Shohei Ohtani, and he set a record that would make Babe Ruth jealous, Pete. So let's let this kid explain and we can comment.
This kid's great.
I would say this, but we are really witnessing the greatest player to ever play the game. Now, what I'm about to show you, if it happened in a spring
you and I've said this, though.
It still would have been the greatest performance
2 years ago when we started this whole thing.
Makes you wonder why the hell they're pitching
to
the
the
kid.
World Series. Enter the greatest baseball player we've ever seen, Shohei Ohtani.
That's him pitching right here. Look at this, Pete.
And strikes out the side.
Yeah, he didn't do too bad on that.
He then switched to hitting and led off the bottom of the first.
There she blows.
He then went back to the mound, struck out
By
three
the way,
more
they
Brewers, and kept
swept
them
them,
scoreless
John.
through 4.
Milwaukee,
And in the bottom of the fourth inning, Ohtani would step to the plate again.
How nice is that swing?
And by the way, he hit that ball 469 feet. But wait, that's not it. You think
To
this
quote
man's
Kevin
done?
Costner,
He would go back
last
to the
time I
mound,
saw something
strike
fly
out
that
4
far,
more
it had a
Brewers,
stewardess
and
on
keep
it.
them scoreless. And then in the bottom of the
Ain't that the
7th, he
truth?
stepped to the plate again to cap off the
Why do you
greatest
pitch to
performance
him
in
now?
baseball history.
Don't you just have the catcher put his arm out and say, hey, look, let's just walk this son of a beast?
So this man, in this one game, as a pitcher, he pitched 6 shutout innings of 2-hit ball, striking out 10. And he had the most whiffs among all pitchers with 19, and the fastest pitch thrown at over 100 miles an hour. And then also as a hitter, he went 3 for 3 with 3 homers, had the farthest ball hit, and the highest exit velocity in the entire game.
I mean, this is a playoff game. This isn't
this
like,
man is
you know,
officially the
somewhere
GOAT.
in the season or whatever. This is meaningful. It's a playoff game. Let's go through those numbers one more time, John. So he struck out 3 people out of the top of the first inning, that is. Strikes them out, and then he gets up to the plate. He hits a home run. Then he hits it up and over the roof on home run number 2. Over the roof. I mean, holy crap. And then, all right, let's get out one more time. We're up 4-zip. Let's have one more. Just throw it to me, is all he was saying. He's looking at these guys going, yep, just throw me that ball because I'm knocking this thing. I'm knocking the cover off. He's like the natural. He really is. So he pitched 6 innings. He had 10 strikeouts and 3 walks. I would say that he is Superman. He's got the cape. He's got it all. And he is the best. And you and I have said this for a long time. This isn't like a just this year. Just you and I have been saying this, you know, going back when he was with the Angels and all the rest of it. And I said, and you had agreed, hey, look, if they're coming, if the Angels or now the Dodgers, but if they're coming to town and Shoho's healthy, you got to go to the game because you got to see the guy in person. And oh, by the way, it's not like he's just some little guy who's really great. I mean, he's 6'4" and about 230, 2.25, something like that, John. The guy looks like a linebacker, for God's sakes. And he goes out there and he couldn't pitch for a while, so he had to stop doing that, but he was still able to hit and blah, 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 and all these different things.
And
this guy is
faces.
Yeah. I mean, the guy is special, right? I mean, he is about as special. I mean, the closest thing of anybody else out there has got to be Michael Jordan, right? I mean, I don't know that you could – in football, I don't even know who you'd ever try to compare, because this guy, it's basically Travis Hunter. If he played every snap on both sides of the ball in the NFL, then it would be. But he doesn't. For all the right reasons. He shouldn't. I mean, that's just too much wear and tear. But this guy is unbelievable, right? I mean, is he special or what? Holy crap.
He is, and he's worth every penny. And Dodger Stadium can pack him in. So some stadiums hold 35, 34,000, 36. Dodger Stadium, I think, holds about 46, 47, Pete. Not positive of the exact number, but I guarantee you, that is probably the toughest ticket to get in LA, even since Kobe and Magic were there. This is something special.
It's like Larry, John, from the television show. I mean, when he gets the hooker in his car so he can go in the carpool lane.
Larry David.
Larry David, one of the greatest scenes ever, by the way. All right, let's jump to a little bit of college football, John. Just because, let me ask you this question. So I was at the Gopher Nebraska game on Friday. Nebraska is not the Nebraska of old. And I say that not criticizing them, but I'm looking at them, John, and they did not look the part. And Minnesota took them apart and ran it up. They did everything that they wanted to do in the game, and they beat them up pretty good. The problem is sitting there, I'm analyzing it going, wow, these guys are not, they don't look like the Nebraska players of old. And I don't know how to describe that look, but they don't have that look. They didn't look confident. The quarterback who thinks he's Patrick Mahomes is not Patrick Mahomes, but he's trying really hard. And it's just not working, John. And I say this, I'm going to another game down there. I was invited by Coach Osborne to come down. So I'm really excited to go down there in a couple weeks. But I got to tell you, that they're not the special team that they once were. Now, you know who is special? Ohio State. Because when you watch all these games that come every Saturday, right? And we sit there and we're like, holy smokes, is it UCLA now? I mean, because UCLA's made this huge comeback, and I know you know that. But here's something. How about this that nobody talks enough about? Ohio State's defense. You know how many points they give up on average, John? 6. 6 points is their average for their defense. We all know that they've got a quarterback who can sling the ball. He's already thrown 19 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. He's got 2 wide receivers that could jump into the NFL right now, and one of them's a freshman. But they could be in the NFL right now. That's how good these guys at Ohio State are. And we've seen it for years now. Ohio State and LSU put so many great wide receivers into the NFL. It's absolutely unbelievable. And this new quarterback, I mean, what he's been able to do in a short period of time, John, I mean, sometimes there's adjustments there. This kid throws the ball exactly where it needs to be. I mean, until you watch him, it's an unbelievable thing. But I thought we could do this. So who's kind of left as far as these undefeated types, or even if they're not undefeated? Vanderbilt is absolutely special. I tell you, that coach is unbelievable, John. He's got a quarterback who's unbelievable as well. He's not an NFL-type quarterback. He probably won't be in the NFL, but he's playing college football where you'd want him to be. And I got to tell you, Vandy is literally sitting there near the top with the SEC with what they've been able to put together already. And if they keep it up, I mean, this is a guy, John, if he wanted to, he could get a job probably offered by all these openings. And by the way, a couple more coaches got fired this weekend. So maybe tomorrow we'll talk about some of the availabilities that are out there, because it ain't just Penn State, man. And it ain't just UCLA. It's not just Oregon State and all these places. These guys are getting hit. But the guy that I think is the most interesting, I'll ask you, but Texas A&M is great. They're still undefeated. They're the top of the ACC, and they got that money and blah, blah, blah. And they, you know what? They're damn good. But how about this Indiana team and Cignetti, the coach, John? Is that guy special or what? I love how cocky he is, and he gets in front of the media and he sits there just talking about it like, I really don't care what you guys think about past Indiana and all the rest of it. We still got a lot to do, but you know what? We're pretty happy with what we're doing right now. With that Cal quarterback, by the way, and his brother, the two of them are there, John. And I'll tell you what, Indiana's pretty special. I mean, I think they slid all the way up. Are they number 2 right now? I think they might be. They're either number 2 or number 3 in the rankings. But
I think they're number 2 now.
Yep. And
because I think Ole Miss might have been number 2, and they lost to Georgia.
And people are starting to talk.
And I love that.
People are starting to talk about Lane Kiffin, John, and where's he going to go? Is he going to go to Penn State? Is he going to go to Florida? Because the Florida coach just that's available. But why leave Ole Miss if you're him? That's the only thing I don't understand. Why is that a better job than the Ole Miss job? I don't see why it's a better job at all. And by the way, that offensive line at Ole Miss is pretty special. They are big, athletic, strong, and they do not have a bunch of guys with the big guts, John. These guys are big, strong, mean suckers and pretty damn good. Now, it doesn't mean that they're perfect because they're not, but I'll tell you what, if I'm Lane Kiffin, I'm not sure why I need to go anywhere outside of Ole Miss. That's a beautiful place.
Well, Diego Pavia, Pete, the kid that moved from New Mexico up to basically be a front runner, I guess, for the Heisman.
Yep.
He looked great. You know, his numbers aren't really Heisman numbers, in my opinion, Pete. You know, he's 14 of 22, 160 yards or so, and he scampers for a lot of yards. So he was the difference against LSU, because LSU did not think he could run like that, apparently, or they would have had a spy on him. But if they had a spy on him, the guy fell down, because I never saw that guy. A spy, folks, for those of you who don't follow it quite as much, is usually like a strong safety or something like that, or sometimes a linebacker that basically mirrors wherever the quarterback is to try to keep him from doing exactly what Diego did, which was run for about 86 or 90 yards. Pete, I was a little surprised by Miami and Texas Tech losses, because Miami, and they might have been number 2, Pete, because maybe I misspoke about Ole Miss. Maybe they were number 2. But Miami losing and then having their quarterback, it wasn't as bitter as you might think, but he really said, hey, my receivers didn't run the route. He said, that's why I threw 4 interceptions. They weren't running their routes. And that's something that, you know, Saban would hate to hear, because he says, you know, it's your fault. If you do it, it's your fault, but I'll take the blame. The coach will take the blame, but you don't blame another player. That's one of the things Saban was really good at, was not saying, you know, hey, our receivers, you know, they suck or they didn't run the routes or whatever. That's coaching them. You know, he'd say, I obviously didn't coach them right or whatever. But that was the Georgia Tech game also, Pete, is going to be really interesting. When Georgia Tech and Georgia get together, that's going to be great, I think. But a lot of folks have fallen from the unbeatens, as you said, Pete, and I think it makes the college football playoffs all the more exciting.
Yeah, because it's not absolutely this team or that team or this school or that school and all the rest of it. I mean, they're going to have to decide which losses were the most critical at the times that they happened and all that kind of crap. So it's going to be interesting. I got one last thing for you, John, then we'll jump. But the NFL, I'll tell you what, even though the Rams are 5-2, they just look a little bit better every single week. And I'll tell you what, you know who really looks fantastic? Matthew Stafford. I know he's older. I know all this kind of thing, John, but that guy, he has been playing lights out. And he looks the part. The Rams defense is very, very good, so that's helpful too. So both sides of the ball, they're scoring. They're moving down the field. They've got some great running backs, great offensive line, a little bit banged up here and there, but the defense has done everything that you'd ever ask. They're number 2 in defense as far as points that they've held people to, which is around 16 or 17 points, John. So the Rams are interesting, but how about this? I know you love talking about the Indianapolis Colts, and so do I. The fact that they're 6-1, and the fact that Daniel Jones, all right, everybody's saying, well, you know, he isn't really doing it. It's just the running back. It's Jonathan Taylor. Well, Jonathan Taylor's great. He really is. But how about these numbers? Daniel Jones against the Chargers, John. Probably one of the best teams in the AFC is the Chargers, I think. And he comes out there and he throws for 288 yards, a couple touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The one thing that people are forgetting is the kid's not throwing interceptions. He's just not. He's out there. He knows how to get the running game going. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor doesn't hurt. But I'll tell you what, he's hitting the right people. He's got that great tight end. I mean, across the board, you start looking at the Colts and you're like, wow, is this team for real? And I think right now they are, because defensively they are, offensively they are, special teams they are. They are doing everything that it takes, and nobody wants to acknowledge still that the Colts are damn good. They all are like, well, Daniel Jones, you know, it's gonna implode. Maybe it will, but right now the kid's playing lights out, and he's one of the best quarterbacks right now in the game. It's amazing.
Well, I got to throw out to my Chicago Bears, Pete.
Yeah.
Because as you know, 4-game win streak. They started the season losing the first 2. Now they've got a 4-game win streak. And during this win streak, 8 interceptions, 10 sacks. It looks, you know, I'm not going to say 85 Bears, but I'm going to say they look like a really good defense. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're going to have if you're going to play Detroit and Green Bay, because those guys can put up points. But the Bears, no 100-yard receiving against them, Pete. Mm-hmm. Dennis Allen, that D coordinator, just has them hitting on all cylinders. So I really like that. Let's leave it on this one, Pete. What do you think tonight with Tampa Bay, one of your favorite teams that we talk about all the time?
Yeah. I love Tampa, John, and I think they're on a roll. I think they're a team that really has their focus, right? I mean, they've got good running backs. We've got a quarterback that everybody loves now, and I love that he's been able to get to where he is, right? I mean, I think he's arguably one of the best quarterbacks as a winner that we've watched in a long time. I mean, the guy just manages to do the right things, not make a lot of mistakes. He does have great receivers. He's got a really good offensive line, and Tampa's back with that Buccaneer defense. I like everything about them. I think they are one of the best teams in the NFC. I mean, I know I just said the Rams, but I think that the Tampa and the Rams are probably the 2 front runners. And I'll tell you, your Chicago Bears, they are playing on both sides of the ball. They are doing all the right things. Your quarterback, who I always was very iffy on, is starting to convince me that maybe he is the quarterback that deserved to be the number 1 pick in the draft and all the rest of it, John. I mean, because they put enough pieces around him. That Bears team is actually pretty dangerous looking team. And I'll tell you what, it's a total up for grabs right now. And the Minnesota Vikings' biggest problem, and I've been on this for a long time, their defense can't stop people. They love to say how B-Flow, as they call him, Brian Flores, is the best defensive coordinator in football. No, he's not. They got linebackers that are too small. They got a D-line that's too small in the middle. And teams that are smart try to run the football on them and do pretty well when they do, John. And they give up a hell of a lot of yards, and they've been giving up way too many points. So why everybody thinks that he's the greatest defensive coordinator in football, I have no idea, because I'll tell you what, give me the Bears, give me the Colts, give me the Rams D coordinators. I'll take those guys every day, because they put them in the right position to win. And I think that's the key, is don't try to trick people. Just get up there and punch them in the mouth. I don't mean that literally, but that's the way you play football in the NFL. You beat the guy in front of you.
Yep. Well, it's Lions by 6 tonight, Pete, at Ford Field. So I'm sure that swings a couple points in their favor, but I don't know. I mean, Baker and that team, could they put up a surprise on the Lions tonight? I think so.
Yep.
So maybe both of us might be taking the points tonight.
It's not a bad bet.
Folks, we appreciate you joining us. Great to be back in the U.S. We will tell you more about the trip to Yerevan, Armenia later in the week, and we appreciate all of you joining us. If you'd like to get trades like that Cliff trade, CLF, that we talked about top of the show, by all means, go over to marketrebellion.com/get started. Jared can perhaps put up that QR code for those of you who are typing challenged. That's marketrebellion.com/get started, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time.